The push and pull of re-energizing the economy while safeguarding lives from a raging pandemic has necessitated an administrative balancing act that even a seasoned juggler would envy. The mission is survival, be it economic or existential, and so the gradual easing of the lockdown has been extended by a further fortnight to monitor the nation's adjustment to new realities. And talking about new realities, resilient Nigerians are coming up with innovative steps to battle the pandemic. Also today on Political Updates, there is a family meeting at the Independent Electoral Commission INEC headquarters in Abuja. Will the timetable of the Edo and Ondo gubernatorial elections be affected? We'll be finding out in the next half hour. I'm Fisayo Ogunfuyi. Welcome. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 says the directive on easing of lockdown will continue for another 2 weeks, with all stipulated guidelines in place. Kenneth Nanim reports that the extension directive by the PTF was approved by President Muhammadu Buhari.
The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 believes the gradual easing of lockdown has achieved remarkable progress, but not without some challenges. PTF Chairman Boss Mustafa explained that the federal government introduced various measures to reduce bank interest rates through CBN intervention facilities to stimulate the economy.
Based on the recommendations of the Presidential Task Force, Mr. President has approved the measures, exemptions, advisories, and scopes of entities allowed to reopen under Phase 1 of the eased lockdown shall be maintained across the Federation for another 2 weeks, effective from today, 18th May, until the 1st of June 2020. The 2 weeks extension of Phase 1 of the ease restriction is also to enable other segments of the economy prepare adequately for compliance with the guidelines, preparatory to reopening in the coming weeks. For the Presidential Task Force, we share your pains, but our future is in the hands of every Nigerian, and future decisions will depend greatly on our compliance.
How do we restart our economies safely? How do we move from the narrative of a lockdown to a narrative of a safe reopening so that people can go back to their livelihoods while still staying safe as possible from this virus? How do we do that in the farms? How do we do that in the markets? How do we do that in the schools? How do we do that in transport? How do we do that in aviation? And really, this has to be our focus in the next few weeks.
He noted that the increase in COVID-19 laboratory network testing, increased bed spaces and training of more health workers to tackle the pandemic are some of the successes achieved in the fight against the pandemic. The existing lockdown in Kano State, he added, will be maintained for another 2 weeks.
We do not want Kano figures to escalate and be in competition with the figures in Lagos. And the only way you can do that is to reduce and interrupt the processes of community transmission that was hitherto in Kano.
The PTF says the federal government is adequately collaborating with the state governments to ensure strict observance of interstate movement restriction to further curtail community transmission of the coronavirus. Though the level of awareness on the pandemic across the country is high, the PTF said it will continue to interface with local authorities to create more awareness on the observance of prescribed guidelines.
On stigmatization, this has remained a concern. In the March poll, 81% said they are willing to work with people who recover from COVID-19. However, that figure has now dropped to 78% in the current poll.
Go for regular medical checkups. And as much as possible, don't find excuses for your symptoms. See your doctor and let the doctor determine what is going wrong at a given point in time.
The task force also announced that all approved allowances, especially for security agencies, will be paid after due processes. While the nationwide dusk-to-dawn curfew sustains for another 2 weeks, Nigerians are advised to take responsibility to contain the virus, as no vaccine is expected till the end of 2021 and the virus is not likely to end soon.
President Muhammadu Buhari says state governors are expected to work more closely with the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 towards engendering better harmony in the task of containing the health crisis. This was at a virtual meeting with members of the Nigerian Governors Forum on the state of the nation.
The virtual interactive session between President Muhammadu Buhari and governors of the Federation was the first amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. President Buhari presided over the meeting from the Executive Council chambers in the State House. With him were the Secretary to the Governor of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, his new Chief of Staff, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, Ministers of Justice, Finance, Budget and National Planning, as well as the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Members of the Nigeria Governors Forum, led by the Governor of Ekiti State, Kayode Fayemi, joined the online meeting from their respective states, deliberating on the fight against coronavirus, especially the next steps in national response to the pandemic. President Buhari harped on the need for the governors to collaborate more effectively with the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 towards containing the health challenge. COVID-19, he emphasized, is beyond technology, power, and resources, saying even countries that had all those are recording highest casualties around the world. He said everyone needs not only to be very careful, but continue to educate and persuade the people to accept the reality of the situation and do all that is necessary to stay safe. The meeting, held behind closed doors and lasted about 1 hour, also discussed, amongst others, economic and security issues. The governors commended the president on the leadership and direction he has given the country in combating COVID-19. They used the forum to congratulate the Nigerian leader for appointing Ibrahim Gambari as his new Chief of Staff, describing the appointee as a round peg in a round hole.
To some politics now, Waziri Bulama from Borno State, Northeast Nigeria, has been officially confirmed as the National Secretary of the All Progressive Congress, APC. National Chairman of the party, Adams Oshiomhole, administered the oath of office to the National Secretary at the National Secretariat of the party.
That I will be faithful.
That I will be faithful.
Architect Waziri Bulama taking oath of office as the third National Secretary of APC. Office of the National Secretary of the party became vacant when the former occupant Mai Mala Buni resigned to seek election as the governor of Yobe State. National Chairman of the party, Adams Oshiomhole, described the office of the National Secretary as strategic, hence the resolve by stakeholders in line with the party's constitution to look for a capable hand from the Northeast.
We've established a tradition, a convention in the party that when there are vacancies, we inform the region, the geopolitical zone where the office is zoned to consult and forward the name to us. We have used this method to fill all the vacancies that had arisen for one reason or the other.
I'll remain faithful to our governors. I'll always be there to consult, to receive information, to be placed before the party for effective decision making. I have no personal agenda of my own.
Members of the party's National Working Committee, stakeholders of the party from the Northeast, including the governors of Borno and Gombe states, commended the choice of Waziri Bulama.
Edo and Ondo governorship elections are just months away, and by INEC's timetable, activities should start from next month. However, in the face of the coronavirus pandemic, will INEC come up with new modalities or adjustments? The top management of INEC met last Thursday. Of course, we have no statement yet from that, but perhaps today's meeting will give us the Commission's position. INEC National Commissioner for Information, Mr. Festus Okoye, joins us now from the headquarters. Mr. Okoye, thank you for joining Political Update.
Thank you so much.
Can you give us any updates, especially if, in view of the Edo and Ondo elections scheduled for this year?
The commission's meeting is still ongoing. If you recall, we had already released the timetable for the conduct of the Edo and Ondo governorship elections.
Yes.
And the commission has said that the Edo governorship elections will take place on the 19th day of September 2020, while that of Ondo will take place on the 10th day of October 2020. So what we are doing as at present is looking at all the policy options available to us and also the guidelines that will take us into these elections against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic and the way the Commission will respond to some of these challenges.
All right, well, if we talk specifically about the pandemic, is INEC bringing on board new protocols around the voting exercise in view of the new realities, maybe distance in terms of what you need to wear to come to the polling booths and all that?
Oh, definitely. INEC's conduct of elections interpasses a lot of issues. We have to deal with the whole issue about party primary elections and the whole issue of nominations and the protocols that we guide party primaries and party nominations. We have to deal with the protocol relating to recruitment and training of election staff, both ad hoc and our own internal staff. We have to deal with the protocols surrounding the calibration of the polling units and the conduct of voters on election day against the COVID-19 pandemic. So the Commission is looking at all these gamut of issues in order to bring out the necessary guidelines, the necessary protocols, and also a policy framework that will guide the Commission in taking decisions and positions for these two elections and for the 9 by-elections that are pending, and also for other elections going forward, because it's very clear that the way we do things must definitely change with this COVID-19 pandemic.
So perhaps in terms of voter, we will talk about issues of voter education, and then perhaps at the end of this meeting, we'll probably be looking at some options of even simulation before we go ahead and start the whole process.
It's a possibility, yes.
Thank you very much. We have been speaking with Mr. Festus Okoye. Okoye of INEC, is the National Commissioner for Information. Thank you for joining us. And of course, as events continue to unfold, we expect that NTA will be your first point of call to give us this information. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on now, the Federal Ministry of Science and Technology says it has received submissions of claims from individuals, organizations and institutions that it can either cure or better manage COVID-19 using indigenous herbal and natural products. Let's take that report.
Ever since the coronavirus disease ravaging countries of the world crept its way into Nigeria late February this year, the science and technology sector has risen to the challenge. This informed the government throwing a challenge to the nation's scientists and technologists to immediately look inwards for a cure and vaccine for the COVID-19 and Lassa fever. This charge on getting a home-based solution to the coronavirus disease was tagged with a reward of 36 million naira. And now, claims and results are rolling in as envisaged. Minister of Science and Technology, however, makes it clear that these submissions, coming with bright chances and encouraging results, will still have to undergo further verifications before making them available to the nation.
Our intention is to bring in the Nigerian Academy of Science to assess all these claims. And once they are assessed and recommendations are made to the ministry, then the ministry will now present this to the nation and assist all those that have been so recommended to ensure that the necessary processes that are needed to move from that level to now producing drugs, will be done.
The determination and interest of the ministry on the matter, he said, is to make sure that homegrown solutions to COVID-19 are found to discourage reliance on other nations to solve the problem.
And joining us now is a scientist, former Director General of the National Office for Technology Acquisition and Promotion, NOTAP, and former Secretary to the State Government of Adamawa State, Dr. Omar Bindra. I have been on this terrain before, commercializable products and all that. What should the timelines look like in terms of speeding up this process, because we need these solutions?
Well, I think it's very impressive to have seen Nigerian institutions responding to this very unique need. And the value chain is very, very wide. And for these formal medication procedures, traditional medication procedures, engineering products, and other creative things like the clothing and so on and so forth, coming out, responding to the requirements of Nigeria to make sure that we are safe is very, very impressive. And I think, as the Honorable Minister of Science and Technology said, the institutions are shaking up. They are using the highest level of capacity that we have in science, which is the Academy of Science, to now be engaged so that they can be able to look at those scientific bits and pieces and then take it to the next level. Also, I am sure the Honorable Minister is engaging the Academy of Engineering to make sure that all the technical things, the ventilators, the tunnels that are sanitizing and so on and so forth, will also be on stream so that Nigeria will start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
All right. Beyond these solutions, we saw some of the earlier reports in terms of, synergies across states and institutions to make sure that, there's a balancing act. We are trying to ease the lockdown. At the same time, we are trying to re-energize the economy. How do we ensure that we can do one and not necessarily enjoy ourselves on the other side?
I think the presidential task force has been very, very impressive. Impressive in the sense that, first, you saw how very, very firmly they blocked the two major cities, Lagos and Abuja. No flights. On a scale of 0 to 10, 10 over 10. We went to blocking everywhere in these three areas, the intensive points. Fantastic. And then the gradual easing down for 2 weeks, getting people to now develop the culture and the orientation of reality. And now, by extending it for further 2 weeks, I think people are now getting used to it. And now people are going to the market with their masks, they are washing their hands. People at home, when they get into the house, they wash, they stay calm. People on the road, I see the police very, very organized, checking people to make sure that they are wearing. I think we are gradually getting into the realities of living with this thing in case it does not go. And additionally, and impressively too, when the SGF was commissioning the This Day Dome, he also made mention that all the other creativities, people who are creative, are encouraged to come forward. Forward means package your proposal, set your claims, submit it to the committee, and then you will see miracles. Nigeria is learning on how to be self-sufficient. I'm very, very impressed.
And I'm looking forward in terms of the low-hanging fruits, especially in the sectors that can begin to help us bridge this gap of scarcity or anything. Which sectors would you be looking at quickly that we can use to revamp the economy, to refire the economy very quickly?
I think certainly is agriculture. Our agriculture, and God so kind, this thing is just hitting us very close to the rainy season. We need to hit agriculture, revamp our rural activity, encourage young people to take agriculture, including modern agriculture, greenhouses, production of tomatoes, production of cucumbers, production of onions, ginger, and so on and so forth. Economic things, so that people are engaged to respond to the president's 100 million people lifted out of poverty in 10 years, self-sufficiency to neutralize the need to import things, reality in terms of looking after our country so that we can be able to get on with it. But agriculture is actually key, and then rural agriculture is the main thing.
Thank you very much. Let's take a legislative perspective. Senator representing Kwara North Senatorial District, Senator Sadiq Umar, says the processes of governance and creation of opportunities for citizens must be proactive and flexible to adjust favorably with the changing times.
I will expect that we will pick up, the country should start picking up. However, we should do that carefully, given that the virus is still around. Thank God our situation is not as bad as most countries, but we need to be very careful so that the gains we have achieved so far, we can continue to maintain it. We need to accept the fact that the virus is here And the virus is going to be around globally for a long time to come. We just have to accept it and courageously move out and live our life, but to be very, very careful. And as a government, I expect that our government too will try to package as much palliative policies and support to the citizens to be able to make life as easy as it can be made possible for them. It's a challenging time for all leaders globally, particularly so in our own case where, for example, it's a mono economy. Most of our foreign earnings comes from crude oil, and there's no production all over the world. So much demand for oil, so prices have plummeted. So it means the government needs to practice more what it has been preaching, which is diversification of the economy. That's number one. Two, the government needs to be more empathic at this time. All of us, all arms of government, we need to have so much empathy for our people by supporting them with any policy, any palliative, anything that will make life easy for them. It is time for the government to open up, to get the best minds, the best ideas from wherever we can get it, so that we'll be more creative in governance. We have to think out of the box. In fact, maybe without the box, to find a way of solving our key problem as it relates to our economy and our healthcare system. Attention has to be paid to our healthcare system more, because with this pandemic, it means that the challenge in the healthcare system is very, very humongous, and it is time for the government to refocus, its attention to areas that matters most: education, health, the economy. We need to pay attention to it very, very closely.
We'll go find out what's from Dr. Bindiru. 5 weeks initially, another extra week, now a fortnight of the gradual easing of the lockdown. What do you see at the end of that tunnel?
I think at the end of the tunnel, Nigerians will learn literally to understand that probably this is not a disease that can go very, very quickly. We have to live with it. We have to improve our zeal and energy to live with this type of thing. And certainly, we are going to support our president to get to the next level, demonstrating that challenges of this nature will never bring Nigeria down.
Thank you very much for being a part of it. Thank you, Atom, for being a part of Political Update, NTA's eclectic ensemble that has a finger in every political pie. My name is Fisa Ogunfe. Thanking you for being a part of it and hoping that you stay with the Nigerian Television Authority, where we give you undiluted news, reviews, previews, and interviews. Bye-bye now. We'll be back, God willing, on Friday.
Welcome, cook, arrange food for Oga, houseboy and housegirl, pack Oga load, enter house. Now so Oga begin spread this